interracial crime is not a particularly big deal in the USA. This is just empirically factual. The groups in the USA, whether you're talking about Southern whites, urban blacks, are tough, for want of a better word. People rarely, except for the crime of robbery, go into the other man's neighborhood and risk death to commit an act of random violence against a stranger. The person most likely to kill you from males is generally your ex-wife. So, I mean, it's not a huge issue. Like, to put this in specific terms, in 2018, which is the most recent year, I believe, on record, there were about 600,000 violent interracial crimes involving black and white people. So either a black perp and a white victim, or a white perp and a black victim. That sounds like a lot, but there were 20 million crimes. And that's just violent and very serious property crimes like carjacking, burglary. These are what are called index crimes. Now, you could break it down more. Like, if you just went into violent crimes and you added up all interracial crimes combined, you might get over 10%. But black-white interracial crime was 3% of crime. This is not a massive problem, and I say that very openly. But then I say that what's remarkable about the media discussion of this is that when you look at the Barbecue Becky, Pool Patrol Paula, Central Park bird watching, and more seriously, Dylan Roof, when you look at these debates, George Floyd, almost all you're seeing is white on black crime. So I wanted to look at the data and see if that's the way it cut. And I had my suspicions, having lived in a city, but it's
5-1, right?
Yeah, it's 80% black on white. Like, there's not of this tiny section of crime, robberies of the other race and so on, wealthy women of one group being attacked by the other, so on. Of those incidents, 80% of them were black on white. Now, I will note the actual math is much more complicated than this, but just as a baseline explanation of why that's not as horrible as it sounds, there are 5 times as many white people. Now, again, that would just lead you would actually predict about the same number of crimes in either direction, given that number. But that's still a starting point for analysis of this. Black people are much younger, white people have more money. So you're not seeing a race war on either end, as the quote unquote alt-right will sometimes try to persuade you, but you are seeing 5-1 black on white crime, and you're not seeing that discussed in the media anywhere. So I said this, and then I said, if we're going to talk about this, which I don't think we should because it's 3% of crime, but if we are going to talk about this, forgive me, bullshit issue, let's tell some of the stories on the other side. And I just did a 30-minute dive into local media. And one of the stories I found was about a girl who was kidnapped, made into a sex slave, and fed to alligators. So the whole story is pretty horrific. You can find it in the book. But essentially, a spring breaker, Brittany Drexel, I believe underage, she was like partying with the older girls in her family, was like taken out of a bar by a random guy who happened to be black. Now, this part could have as easily been a white, Hispanic, whatever guy. But she was apparently drugged, taken to a house. She was kept there, sexually abused for several days. When she tried to run away, one of the people, who was apparently some kind of local gangbanger, got mad, shot her. And to get rid of the body, they threw the body into an alligator pond. So the body was apparently eaten by alligators. And my point was, like, this doesn't make Rodney King or George Floyd or any less horrible, but it's very easy to do this in all directions. Now, are we going to put up the 3% of crime and work on the schools, or no? And I think that's an important point to make.